Ilvermorny sorting quiz. So just keep track of your results on a piece of paper on your phone. So let's get into it. Question number one, you see someone running away and another person on the ground injured. How do you react? A, I would first look around and analyze the situation carefully before deciding. B, I would immediately run after the attacker looking to stop them. C, I would quickly make sure that the person on the ground is okay before going after the attacker. Or D, I would immediately run over to the injured person to make sure that they are taken care of first. Okay, so if you answered A, that's 1 point for Horned Serpent. If you answered B, that's 1 point for Wampus. If you answered C, that's 1 point for Thunderbird. And if you answered D, that's 1 point for Pukwudgie. So write down the A, B, C, or D and which house this went to, and we're going to keep going here and tally them up at the very end. Okay, so question number two. What do you think is the most important thing about someone if you had to choose from these options? Would it be A, the soul, B, the body, C, the heart, or D, the mind? What do you think is the most important thing about somebody if you had to choose one of these options? Okay, so if you answered A, that is 1 point for Thunderbird. If you answered B, that's 1 point for Wampus. If you answered C, that's 1 point for Pukwudgie. And if you answered D, that's 1 point for Horned Serpent. Question number three. Which of these sounds the most like you? A, I consider myself to be very independent. B, I love learning new things and consider myself to be very curious. C, I'm always down for an adventure or a new experience. Or D, I live an active lifestyle and don't like sitting still for very long. Which of these sounds the most like you? Okay, so if you answered A, that is 1 point for Pukwudgie. If you answered B, that's 1 point for Horned Serpent. If you answered C, that's 1 point for Thunderbird. And if you answered D, that's 1 point for Wampus. Question number four. Which of these jobs sound the most interesting to you? And they would all pay the exact same, so just to keep them on an equal playing level. Is it A, social worker, B, an architect, C, a travel blogger, or D, a gym executive? Which of these jobs sound the most interesting to you if they all paid the exact same? Okay, so if you answered A, that's 1 point for Pukwudgie. If you answered B, that's 1 point for Horned Serpent. If you answered C, that's 1 point for Thunderbird. And if you answered D, that's 1 point for Wampus. Question number five. What do you think that people should be defined by? A, by their passions and who they love. B, by their experiences and the choices they make. C, by their actions and how they express themselves. Or D, by what they know and how they learn. What do you think that people should be defined by? Okay, so A was 1 point for Pukwudgie, B was 1 point for Thunderbird, C was 1 point for Wampus, and D was 1 point for Horned Serpent. Question number six. What is your favorite magical creature? Would you say it's an A, a dragon, B, a centaur, C, a house elf, or D, a phoenix? Out of the ones listed, what is your favorite magical creature? All right, so A was 1 point for Horned Serpent, B was 1 point for Wampus, C was 1 point for Pukwudgie, and D was 1 point for Thunderbird. Question number seven. Which of these fits you the best? A, I am strong-willed. B, I have a lot of friends. C, I am a free spirit. Or D, I lead by example. Which of these statements fits you or describes you the best? All right, so A was 1 point for Horned Serpent, B was 1 point for Pukwudgie, C was 1 point for Thunderbird, and D was 1 point for Wampus. Question number eight. Which of these magical careers most interests you? Would it be A, a magizoologist, B, a pro Quidditch player, C, a healer, or D, an auror? Which of these magical careers most interests you? So if you answered A, that was 1 point for Horned Serpent. B was 1 point for Wampus. C was 1 point for Pukwudgie. And D was 1 point for Thunderbird. Question number 9. Which pet would you bring with you to Ilvermorny? Would it be A, an owl, B, a frog, C, a cat, or D, a snake? Which pet would you bring with you if you were going to the wizarding school of Ilvermorny? So if you answered A, that was 1 point for Thunderbird. If you answered B, that was 1 point for Pukwudgie. If you answered C, that was 1 point for Wampus. And if you answered D, that was 1 point for Horned Serpent. Question number 10. Choose one of the 4 elements. A, air, B, fire, C, water, or D, earth. Choose one of the 4 elements. Okay, so A was 1 point for Thunderbird, B was 1 point for Horned Serpent, C was 1 point for Pukwudgie, and D was 1 point for Wampus. Question number 11. It is your first day at Ilvermorny. What sounds the most like you? A, I am excited to meet new friends in my classes and in my house. B, I can't wait to explore the campus. C, I'm excited to make my presence felt at the school. Or D, I can't wait to start all of my different wizarding classes. It is your first day at Ilvermorny. Which answer sounds the most like you? All right, so A was 1 point for Pukwudgie, B was 1 point for Thunderbird, C was 1 point for Wampus, and D was 1 point for Horned Serpent. Okay, so tally up your answers and let me know which house that you had the most points for, and that is your house. So just a little bit quickly about each of them. House Thunderbird. House Thunderbird is named after the magical creature that shares the same name. A thunderbird is a large bird, which is a close relative to the phoenix. It is said that members of this house represent the soul. It is also a house that favors adventurers. Um, so House Wampus. House Wampus is named after the magical creature that shares the same name, the Wampus cat. The Wampus is a magical cat that is the same size as a mountain lion or a cougar. It is said that members of this house represent the body. It is also a house that favors warriors. House Pukwudgie. Pukwudgie is named after the magical creature of the same name, the Pukwudgie. These are distant relatives to goblins, and they are known to hunt with arrows that are poisonous. It is said that members of the house represent the heart. It is also said that it favors those who are healers. And then we have Horned Serpent, House Horned Serpents. So these are named after serpents that look like dragons. They have long teeth, horns, and various other magical powers. It is said that members of this house represent the mind. It is also the house that favors those who are scholars. So yeah, let me know who you got in the comment section below. Would love to hear from you. And yeah, please subscribe to this channel for more Harry Potter and Wizarding World related personality quizzes. Thanks a lot.